Greetings. I am Walt Bauer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Human Development Institute's second spring seminar. My brief visual description is I am a white male wearing glasses with hazel eyes and a blue shirt with a blue and gray striped tie. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am sitting in front of a virtual background. My virtual background is a 3-story brick building that has offices for the Human Development Institute on the University of Kentucky campus. The sun is shining on the brick building. We welcome all the participants who are joining us. Our speaker will provide an opportunity for questions today, and we welcome questions from all of our participants. Should you have questions about CEUs, you can contact me. My email address is walt.bauer@uky.edu. Again, my email address is walt.bauer@uky.edu. Please take a moment to complete our brief evaluation. You will receive an email that provides a link to access the session evaluation. It is really helpful as we plan for upcoming webinars. The title of today's presentation is Traumatic Brain Injury. What is it and how does it manifest? It's a pleasure and a privilege to introduce our moderator and presenter today. Dr. Nick Wright is a champion of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. He is a nationally recognized award-winning higher education leader, scholar, and practitioner that excels at making connections and building an inclusive environment. Dr. Wright serves as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Human Development Institute at the University of Kentucky. Dr. Christina Dillahunt is a professor in the Department of Child and Family Studies, a rehabilitation and mental health counseling program at the University of South Florida, Tampa. Dr. Dillahunt has been working in the field of brain injury since 2004. Dr. Dillahunt is also involved in private vocational rehabilitation practice. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Dillahunt.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. Hi, I'm Dr. Dillahunt. I'm Zooming with you all from Tampa, Florida, and I have to see what it looks like outside. We got blue skies and sunshine here too. I'm a female wearing a blue blazer and a patterned top. I have on some reading glasses and I have my blonde hair up in a bun. So that's kind of what I look like here. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers. All right, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So it's a pleasure to be with you all here today. There's actually 92 people on the call, which is great. We will have someone, Dr. Wright will be moderating the chat for us, which will be great. And the way that I have my system set up is I'm not seeing anybody except for my slides right now. So again, I will be, if someone needs to chat with me, I will have the chat box open here as well. I see right now someone said hello, so that's great. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. It's a little bit about me. I've been a rehabilitation counselor since 2001. I went to the University of Florida in Gainesville, where I got my master's in rehabilitation counseling. And at the time that I went to school, you kind of picked 2 tracks. You picked vocational evaluation or you picked licensed mental health counseling. And at that time, I was really interested in vocational rehabilitation. So I kind of decided to go that route early on in my rehabilitation career. After graduating my master's, I went and worked for the Center for Independent Living as an employment specialist and an independent living skills trainer. And that was an incredible opportunity. I worked with both public and private VR and did job placement for persons with diverse disabilities. Through those experiences, I realized that systems change was definitely needed in our area and went back to school for my PhD in rehabilitation science. I was able to complete that in about 3.5 years, also at the University of Florida. At the time, was thinking about going and working with HIV/AIDS populations and vocational challenges, and was presented with an opportunity to evaluate a program with the Brain Injury Association of Florida. So that was kind of my first time working with that population at the adult level. I do have a brother with an acquired brain injury, so I bring the family member perspective as well. And decided to go work with the Brain Injury Association, not do a postdoc. So I work with them as a prevention specialist, a researcher, a program coordinator, and then I served as a state director of family programs and services for about 1.5 years. And then I was offered a tenure track position at the University of South Florida. And I decided that I would get back into academia. So I've been at USF since 2011. was promoted to associate professor and tenured in 2017, and then promoted to full professor in 2022. So that's kind of my story. I also work at the VA hospital. I have an appointment there and I do research with traumatic brain injury. And then I'm getting more interested in more of the private type of vocational rehabilitation, doing some life care planning, vocational evaluations for plaintiff defense litigated cases, as well as divorce type of cases with marital separation issues, and also do some, which my favorite is the career counseling. So for people that are either mid-career, changing careers, or because of a life circumstance have needed to make a career change. So those are some of the things that I do. In my other life, I'm a mom. I have a 6-year-old, and pretty much when I'm not doing anything related to university or private practice, I'm spending time with my family. I have a Peloton and I really like hot yoga. So that's a little bit about me as a human outside of what we do. Also pretty active with the CRCC on the committee. I serve on their ethics committee, and I'm also on the board of the National Rehab Association. I also have I work as a co-chair for the American Congress of Rehab Medicine Behavioral Health Networking Group, and then just got appointed to the ABVE board. So they keep me busy. It's hard for me to say no, but I do say no sometimes. So I do a lot of community work as well. So going to traumatic brain injury, we're going to approach this as, I know some of you might know a little bit more about this topic than others. So we're going to do a little bit of general overview, and then we'll get into more of an in-depth meat of the presentation. Get my mouse over here and we'll get going. And I will be happy to answer questions at the end. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? I know we've been living in, Zoom land for a while, and we've been doing a lot of webinars. So the approach that I try to take is not to put too much on the slides, but to allow for some discussion when we bring these slides up. So the title of this slide is Introduction, and the box here on the bottom left said, traumatic brain injury is often the last thing on anyone's mind until it's the only thing. And that's true. So people really don't think about this until they're somehow affected by it, or someone they know has been affected by it. And like a snowflake, no two TBIs are alike. Same thing with, you could also use fingerprint here as well. And that you can have 2 people in the same car accident, and they could present with very different symptoms in terms of sustaining a traumatic brain injury. So it's, whenever you are working with someone with a brain injury, you need to know that no one is ever going to present with the exact same injury and the exact same symptoms that manifest consequential of that injury. So we're going to do a little overview of TBI here. We're going to do some short film clips. There's a Faces of Brain Injury MP4 that I believe I sent out. There's a crash reel trailer here, which is a video that one of the famous snowboarders was on a half pipe and had a significant brain injury and was airlifted. Bob Woodworth, he is a famous newscaster that sustained a traumatic brain injury. Another link to this one down here below is Tracy Morgan. He's a famous actor and comedian who sustained a brain injury, and he discusses kind of his life and how it was impacted immediately after the injury, and then a follow-up. And then we have an On Your Own video here for 35 minutes. So remind me, I think we have about an hour and a half today. The MP4 didn't look like it was embedded, so I'll make sure I get that to you all. But what we can do is I'll show you, we'll see if this works.
We have closer to 2 hours today.
Okay, great.
1 to 3, 2 hours.
Okay.
Is the video playing?
Yeah, Dr. Dillahunt, is the video supposed to be playing right now?
Oh, okay, hold on. So the video is not sharing?
It's not sharing.
Okay, sorry guys. Let me see if I can make that happen for you. I always run into this trouble when I try to share my screen. So I'm gonna pause my share. And then, oh, now I can see everybody. Thanks for your patience, you all. Okay, I think we should be good to go.
We can see it.
All right, now let's see if we can hear it.
We cannot hear it. We cannot hear it.
Okay, well,
There's a share sound button in the bottom left before you share that you can click on that, and that will enable the audio for us to hear it.
okay.
Share
Hold
sound.
on just a second.
Bottom left box. There's a little small box.
I should have let you guys do this for me. Share sound.
Yes.
Share video.
Yes.
Share. Restart.
Yes.
All right. How about now?
We can hear the audio.
Woo! Okay.
Kevin Pierce, raised on maple syrup, sharp cheddar, weaned on the hills of Vermont.
This guy right here is slaying it.
It's cool to have people saying that you're Olympic hopeful. The new 22-foot half pipes have changed the way we get to snowboard.
Kevin Pierce has given Shaun White a run for his money.
This is not Shaun White, but Kevin Pierce might be just as good.
We share the same talent. It's such an exciting time for us.
Road to Vancouver right now. This is the road.
That might have been the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
How you doing?
Do you know your nickname, Cav? You don't? How are you?
Hey everyone, thanks for all your support. I'm doing better.
I still want to snowboard.
You actually could die.
We look at it as trust. We look at it as risk.
It's really hard to understand why I would ever want to get back on a board after what I've been through unless if you really understood the feeling I had for snowboarding. Snowboarding is my true love. I feel 100% confident.
Yeah, I just don't want to be done. The only way to be successful in that sport is to push the limit. Everybody's having bad falls.
It doesn't come without injury. I'm 24 years old right now and I've broken, 23 bones.
All right.
We are looking at your email right now.
Oh, great. Okay. All righty. Okay. So let me go back. And I'm going to do another share. Okay.
We are looking at the Bob Woodruff video.
Great.
After years of dedicated reporting, Bob Woodruff had finally fulfilled a long-time dream. In December of 2005, he was officially named the co-anchor of ABC's World News Tonight. He seemed to have it all, a loving marriage and 4 beautiful children. On the morning of January 29, 2006, Bob was reporting from an Iraqi tank that was on patrol north of Baghdad. In an instant, just 26 days after starting his new job, Bob's life would take an explosive turn.
The phone rang, and the voice said, "Lee, this is David Weston, who's the president of ABC News," and my heart sort of stopped. You know, I knew that this wasn't good.
Bill, we have some breaking news to report. Our co-anchor of World News Tonight, Bob Woodruff, and his cameraman, Doug Vogt, were injured in an attack.
We are following developments on the condition of ABC News anchor Bob Woodruff.
Bob and Doug were quickly evacuated to a U.S. military
have head
hospital.
injuries. They are in the hospital.
About all we really know is that both are in serious condition.
When Bob first arrived here, he was in a semi-comatose state. He was not following commands. He had one particular rock that was about $half in size that completely traversed from the left side of his neck to the right side of his neck, and that was sitting right on top of the carotid artery. Certainly the surgery he had done in Iraq saved his life. The real question was, what kind of individual we'll have at the end of this period?
I wanted to know, how he would feel about me, if he would recognize me. And so I looked at Dr. Armanda and I said, will he still love me? And he said yes. He said that he hasn't had a patient yet who didn't wake up and love the people that he loved before. And he was right. He was always right. So I walked in the room and I parted the curtain, and Bob was sitting up in bed, and he turned to me and he said, "Sweetie, where have you been?" Just like that. Where did I get you? And I think I rushed over to him and, gave him a big kiss, and then I thought, okay, where do I begin?
It's nice. You want to see that there's a nice right here? There's like what? Ball. Eyeball. You taught me.
Watching the brain put itself together has been an incredible miracle.
Belt buckle.
What?
Belt buckle.
Belt burl.
Belt buckle.
Belt buckle.
Belt.
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 Bout.
No, Nora, you're confusing him. Belt.
Belt.
Buckle.
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 Belt.
Buckle.
Buckle. Belt buckle. You taught me. Belt buckle.
Diamond.
You did it.
Diamond.
I can't really talk, but I can certainly dance and dance.
Even at the lowest moments, in my core of my heart, I always believed he would be okay. Even when the doctors were telling me something different, I would look at them and I would say, "But you don't know my husband. You don't know my Bob. He's a fighter, and he's smart, and he wants to live." And I think they thought I was all crazy. But now I can say, I was right.
I mean, when I think about what my wife got through and all this, how she made it through this, I mean, I did this to her, I did this to the family, and I'm very sad by it. But she's wonderful.
So you go to Germany, which is that he's transferred to Germany, and what's that like to see him? Are you just losing it, or are you trying to keep it together, thinking maybe he's feeling some of this?
I'm keeping it together, and I'm actually at the time thinking, darn, his brows look really good.
I was looking on the positive aspect of all this.
I think I had to focus in on this tiniest little thing to stay sane, because the rest of it was horrific. Bob and I have always shared a great sense of humor. And I've said so many times that if we couldn't laugh, we would probably be crying.
You're talking to him,
all the time. I'm rubbing his disgusting feet, I'm cutting his nails, I'm doing things that as a wife I need a little payback on right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I always know there's a lesson in everything. And I hear that you, Bob, have a renewed sense of gratitude.
Out of this thing, something positive has happened. The chance to meet some of the others that have gone through this, the ones in the soldiers and the Marines as well. If we can somehow, out of this, help those that are getting injured a little bit more than they're being helped right now, then that would be worth it.
Is he your Bob? He is my Bob. He's so my Bob. I'm amazed.
Fare thee well, my own true love.
There's this moment at night when he crawls in next to me and he's right there, and I just sort of touch his back or his chest or whatever, and I just think, I can't believe you're here. You should not be here by any textbook known to man, any medical textbook, and you're here. It's a gift. Every night is a gift.
But I'll be back. Though I go 10,000 miles, 10,000 miles, my own true love. 10,000 miles or more. The rocks may melt and the seas may burn. Okay. And give me one more minute.
Dr. Dillahunt, while you are doing that, just some comments in the chat. Saying such inspirational stories, amazing, and others are saying resilience and some other things there. And there's also a question in the chat. So just a question in the chat. It might be addressed in the presentation, but I wanted to ask before I forget, is it still considered cerebral palsy if someone gets a TBI before the age of 3 and after the age of 3 it's considered just a TBI? I was wondering if the definitions change over time.
Yes, that's a great question. I am having trouble finding my share screen on my Zoom for some reason, so I don't know what the deal is. Oh, I'm going to show the taskbar. So there has been debate over this for years. At what age? Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 5. It depends. Sometimes, infants can be dropped after birth too. So brain damage usually occurs when there's like the umbilical cord issues, placental problems, those types of things. I'm going back to my notes here, see if I went over this at all. But there's some mixed definitions on that. Usually cerebral palsy doesn't worsen over time and usually is involved with more of the motor type of activities. But there has been, depending on where you are, a difference in definition. So TBI and cerebral palsy can occur during labor and shortly after birth. Where TBIs are considered a severe medical issue, CP is something that that usually doesn't change over time. So let me do a little bit more research and see what the CDC has said, because sometimes those change, but normally it's between 2 or 5 and is related to birth trauma. Okay, so let me go back here to my toolbar. And let's see here. Are you seeing what are you seeing on my screen?
We're not seeing anything quite yet. The share screen button at the bottom will pop up, and then you'll have a window, and there should be a copy of your PowerPoint in there to click on, and then click share.
Okay.
A window will pop up with the open applications.
Okay. Sorry, guys. You would
That's
think I know how to do this after years.
And then you just click share in the bottom right.
Yeah.
Of that window.
The Zoom's not giving me that thing I need. So hold on a second. There we go. I got it.
We cannot quite see it quite yet. Yeah. But we're seeing it now.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
You're seeing the slide, not the note slide.
Yes, we're seeing the actual slide.
Okay, so
the slides, and then also with you, if you would like to turn your visual on, that would be great. Your video.
Oh, okay. I can do that too.
Bottom.
Yeah,
left.
but I moved it over to. I have 3 monitors.
We can see the visual.
Okay,
video now.
good. So I'm not going to go click on any more of these videos because it takes quite a bit of time for us to go in and out of them. But if we have time at the end, I'll come back to them. So Tracy Morgan, if you aren't familiar with him, he's a comedian and he was injured in an accident. And then there's a follow-up video of what he's like several years later. And then there's an on your own video too, which is 35 minutes. It really goes through the daily life of individuals with TBI and faces of brain injury. The module 4 somehow didn't embed up here, but that is an old video just talking about, and I can send this to you, about how people don't, how their lives change socially after brain injury, how people are there right at first when an accident happens, but then supports kind of tend to fade over time. Personalities can change after brain injury. Social supports, people talk about losing their friends and their employment and those types of things. So again, if we have some time, we can go back to those, but it's a bit challenging trying to switch through. I'm not great at that. So, all right. So moving on to brain injury. Okay, just a brief overview. TBI is an insult to the skull, brain, or its coverings resulting from external trauma, which produces an altered state of consciousness or anatomic, motor, sensory, cognitive, or behavioral deficit. And note that an individual doesn't have to lose consciousness to sustain a TBI. So a lot of people think that you have to be knocked out or black out to have one, and that's simply not the case. In terms of TBI severity, most of them are mild, considered mild by 80%. Moderate TBIs are between 10 and 30%, and severe TBIs between 5 and 25%. We'll talk about severity levels a little bit more in a moment. TBI is now considered a chronic condition, meaning that it can change over time. So as someone ages with the TBI, symptoms can change and new symptoms can emerge. The best information for you if you want to look at prevalence and incidence data and statistics is I usually go to the Centers for Disease Control. They do publish reports to Congress that include this information. So that's a picture of one of their reports here. So again, the Center for Disease Control and Surveillance, they have a traumatic brain injury data index. I put a link to that here, as well as they also have surveillance reports. In terms of health disparities and TBI, in general, health disparities are differences in health outcomes and their causes among groups of people. Groups can be defined by factors such as race, ethnicity, sex, education, income, disability, and geographic location, such as rural. And then I've got a link to a form down here that talks about health disparities across the TBI populations if you want more information. In terms of rates, males, the rate of TBI-related hospitalization in males is 2 times as high as females. Why do you think that is? Anyone want to raise your hand? Let me see if I can look in the chat box here.
And I'll make sure to monitor the chat box for you as soon as it comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Military, yes. Men take more risks. Drive fast. Risk taking, absolutely. So that is really, riskier behavior. And the rate of TBI related deaths in males is 3 times as high as in females. So in terms of health disparities, make sure that's right. People in correctional or detention facilities have higher rates and of TBI. Almost half of the people in correctional or detention facilities, such as prisons and jails, have a history of TBI. So people, why do we think this is? Why do we think people in jails and prisons might have higher rates of TBI? I'm looking at the chat. Violence, violence, violence. Yep. Fighting, gang, physical abuse. Yep. Risky behavior. And then something else is interesting is that those types of things don't necessarily stop when you go into prisons or jails, do they? So sometimes people would have initiations or, other types of violence that happens within those settings. There used to be something called Pumpkinhead where they would, it's really awful, but they would attack someone until their head was swollen like a pumpkin. It's quite disturbing, but these are things that do happen in those types of setting. Yes, and social determinants of environment. Risky behavior often leads to being incarcerated. Poor impulse control, absolutely. And also that, some of these folks have had jaded past. And what's unfortunate is we have a study right now that we've been working on looking at residential youth and trying to reduce the recidivism rates. And we've found that 75% of the youth have been written off as having problematic behavior or being, unreceptive to treatment and not wanting to engage in the treatment process. Well, they've never been screened for brain injury. So whoever is treating them is not understanding they have a brain injury. And so maybe some of the interventions and some of the tasks that they're being charged with are very challenging for people with TBI because they're not able to process that. In terms of tribal populations, American Indian, Alaska Native, children and adults have higher rates of TBI-related hospitalization and deaths other than ethnic racial groups. And so factors contributing to this within this group is difficulty accessing healthcare, as well as higher rates of motor vehicle accidents, suicidal ideation, and substance use disorders. When I went to a CANAR conference, there's an organization called CANAR, which is the Consortium for Native American Vocational Rehabilitation. And that's not the exact acronym, but it is voc rehab for this population that we just talked about. And something that I never thought about before was some of these motor vehicle accidents are hitting livestock, right? Cows and things being on the road, which in Tampa, I don't see too many cows on the road. So you have to think about those things too, that the actual physical environment where they live might have different types of obstacles or barriers that could cause different types of accidents. Major causes of TBI. So falls are number one. Within the civilian population, then you've got motor vehicle crashes, gunshot wounds, sports-related injuries. There's a big, to do with the NFL now. Interestingly enough, the CDC had a heads up concussion kit back in the early 2000s, and it was kind of not adopted as quickly because people wanted their kids to play football. They didn't want to pull them out. So, but now with what's going on with CTE and the things going on with the NFL, we're seeing a lot more attention being paid to brain injury and protecting the brain. Workplace injuries is another cause of brain injury, child abuse, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, military actions, IED blasts, and other injuries caused by trauma. And someone put down here Black Fridays, and I don't know what that means. So maybe Tammy, you can write that down and elaborate on that. So now we're going to talk about adolescents versus adults. I'm making a note here. Adolescents and adults are affected by moderate or severe TBI who were discharged from rehab centers were more than twice as likely to die 3.5 years after injury compared to persons in the general population. So in 2010, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimated that TBIs accounted for approximately 2.5 million ED visits, hospitalizations, and deaths in the US, either as an isolated injury or in combination with other injuries. Of these people, approximately 87% were treated and released from EDs, and another 11% were hospitalized and discharged, and about 2% passed away. However, the reason that these numbers underestimate this occurrence is sometimes people don't go to the ED. Sometimes they go to their general practitioner. Sometimes they just shake it off and they think that they're okay. These numbers don't account for people who did not receive medical care, had an outpatient or office-based visits, or who might have received care at a federal facility, such as serving in the US military or those seeking cares at VA hospital. Again, more information is available at the CDC. In terms of cost, this is a dated statistic. In 1 year alone, TBIs cost Americans $76.5 billion in medical care, rehab, and loss of work. So again, we already said that these numbers are low, and yet look at how high the cost is. So realistically, this cost will be higher than $76.5 billion in a year. When you think about the terms of human costs related to long-term impairment and disability following TBI, you really can't calculate these. They affect both the individual and the family. You saw how Kevin Pierce and his family were concerned about him and how their lives completely changed. I received a phone call, an email, maybe 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. And it was a mother of a son who was in a car crash 4 years ago in California. And she's having trouble finding a neuropsychologist here in Florida and having difficulty finding any sort of CBT that will understand brain injury. Unfortunately, the Brain Injury Association I used to work for folded in 2019. There were some issues with management well after I left, so they're trying to establish a new one. But right now, there's no real support services here in Florida for these folks. So, I teach a lot of the voc rehab counselors. A lot of these folks are our students. I've been in Florida for a long time. So I get a lot of emails and a lot of requests. Where can I find TBI services? Do you know of any information that I can provide to my clients about brain injury? Do you know any doctors? Do you know anyone who knows anyone that knows doctors? Those types of things. So I get these calls all the time. And so this woman who was living on her own, independently working for FedEx for almost 35 years, her son was in an awful accident, was resuscitated, was operated on for 16 hours, survived. Now he's back living with her. He only got 15 days of outpatient rehab in Galveston because that's all that was covered for him. And now he's back home. She told me I had to teach him how to walk again. I had to teach him how to toilet again. That didn't happen in rehab. And so now he's at the point where he wants to work and re-engage in the community. And she reached out to me because there are some concerns about aggression and rage, which is very common after brain injury. So this woman says, I've exhausted all my savings. I have no supports down here. My ex-husband helps out when he can. I'm exhausted. I had to quit my job, and this has been 4 years, and I just don't know what to do. I don't have anybody to talk to. I said, well, have you found a support group? She didn't know anything about support groups. So we got her connected to a support group. And then I'm trying to help provide her with information that she can use to kind of help her navigate living life after brain injury. So when it says here, these human costs related to long-term impairment and disability following TBI are incalculable and affect both the individual and family, that is what I see to be the biggest impact, is that this individual prior to this accident was living on his own, working, and in a matter of seconds, his life is completely changed. And he's probably always going to have some sort of guardian in his life. So then you think about, well, what happens when these people age? What happens when the people that care for them pass away? So all of these things are important to consider. So between 3.2 and 5.3 million people live with disabilities caused by TBI. 2.5 million TBIs occur annually in the US. And again, it's probably underreported, as we mentioned before. And then 90,000 of TBIs occurring annually will result in long-term disability. So there's a question here, are strokes that affect cognitive ability considered TBI? This is interesting. So all TBIs are ABIs, but not all ABIs are TBIs. So when I say ABI, acquired brain injury versus traumatic brain injury. So people can get a brain injury from, say, toxic poisoning, encephalitis. those types of things, right? They can get an acquired brain injury that way. A traumatic brain injury is caused by external force to the head. And I thought maybe, I'm just going to scoot back here. Yes, so when we're looking at a TBI, this is an insult to the brain, skull, or its covering resulting from external trauma, which produces an altered state of consciousness or anatomic, motor, sensory, cognitive, or behavioral deficit. So again, the key here with traumatic brain injury is that it's external trauma.